In honor of Valentine's Day, Valentine's Week, Valentine's Month, or whenever you happen to be watching YouTube, today we're taking a look at a special romance comic, 2002's Spider-Man's Tangled Web issue number 11, titled Open All Night. And you might recognize the art style there. You may see the names already in the corner. This is a Darwyn Cooke book, which is what makes it worth reading, and it is a great example of his art and his storytelling. Inked by Jay Bone, who did a lot of work with him, who adds a very smooth, very thick brush style to this, but it fits in a lot of places because Cooke is going for a little bit of a retro, obviously this opening page here has the feeling of a 50s or 60s ad thing. I'm not even sure how to explain it exactly, but it's very stylistic in the way only Darwyn Cooke could do and get away with it. So this is just a nice little opening introduction about how this is Valentine's Day, and if you play your cards right and don't screw up, you might just get a little lovin'. Sounds simple enough, unless, of course, your name is Peter Parker. Now, the thing with a lot of these Tangled Web stories is that while it is a Spider-Man book, Spider-Man often isn't the star of the book, isn't the point of the book. It's the events he sets off in motion, or the people around him who have issues regarding his life and story, basically. In this book in particular, we open up with a great New York City over Manhattan fight scene between Spider-Man and the Vulture, who has just stolen a big diamond. And this opening double page spread, of course, will probably remind you of Darwyn Cooke's The Spirit, where in the opening title here, he manages to put the opening title inside the art, kind of makes it look like the skyscrapers are part of the lettering, so it works really well. Matt Hollingsworth doing the colors on this, by the way. I assume Darwyn Cooke did the lettering himself. As you'll see in just a second, it is a hand-lettered book. Even in 2002, they had pretty much all gone digital by that point. But this book, gloriously hand-lettered. It's not perfect. It's not always straight. The letter forms aren't always exactly what you want. But darn it, it's easy to read. It's fun to read. The style goes along with everything else. I mean, you can see right away, this is obviously a very cartoony-like Spider-Man. This is not a McFarlane Spider-Man or even a Bagley Spider-Man. Cooke in this story is going for definitely a bit of a retro feel here. And J. Jonah Jameson is enjoying watching Vulture beat up on Spider-Man and having the time of his life. I mean, obviously a master storyteller, he knows how to storyboard a scene, but he also knows how to do comic books really well, because you'll see in a couple panels here, the frame within a frame. Here we see Vulture flying away. He's framed by Spider-Man's legs there. And on the next page, the first panel kind of reverses that shot. You're going from a sort of a down angle on Vulture to an up angle on Vulture, and Vulture is now framing Spider-Man in the panel. And then you get this lovely three-panel sequence, which you just feel it work. You feel Spider-Man swinging across the page, and until you take a look at it to realize everything Cooke is doing on here, he's keeping the camera low, shooting up at Spider-Man. At first, Spider-Man is going up and away from you, but then you can see the way the line changes direction. Now he's coming back at you. His arms and legs are flailing behind him, so you get that motion of him moving. You get the motion lines to show he's sort of changing direction. So he's going up and over, back down, and coming down the panel, almost at the reader, so close he's crowding the panel out, falling towards you. It's a very extreme change from little Spider-Man to medium Spider-Man to big Spider-Man. Spider-Man going away, then coming back, and then coming right at you. This is a comic, yes, that would work in 3D. If only Ray Zone were around to do the 3D-ification of it for you. And then, of course, Spider-Man smacks into a chimney pipe or something here, which is loaded with explosives, and the Vulture goes boom on him and pretty much knocks him out. We'll get to that sequence because that's pretty cool too. Vulture's happy. J. Jonah Jameson is happy. Vulture flies away. And there's this great little three-panel sequence here. Another great three-panel sequence where Spider-Man is falling down into the city. These first two panels have the same background. This isn't the same background replicated, but it's one big background, and Spider-Man is falling down into what basically would be, in perspective terms, the vanishing point. He starts up high, he goes down a little lower. He'd go even lower here, except the problem is the vanishing point, if you follow the lines, probably would be around here somewhere, I'm guessing. So you can't do that trick for 3 straight panels. It would look a little weird. You'd have to like fly over this roof or something. It would kind of break that straight line. So Darwyn Cooke holds that for 2 panels, then changes view back to the ground level, and adds this nice little, bing bang boom here where Spider-Man hits across a couple of buildings a couple of times. Again, because this feels like a slightly cartoonier comic already, Cooke's art style has established that. It works. I mean, if you had done this with like a John Romita Jr. drawn issue of Amazing Spider-Man, that might seem weird or overly violent. But this book is a little lighter in tone already, and so we end up with Spider-Man here, who lands, of course, safely in a pile of garbage, because as we all know, all garbage bags are like pillows. If we've learned anything from superhero cartoons over the years, that's what we should learn there. So now we cut back to the Daily Planet. And here we have the beginning of what is the actual storyline of the book, how Peter Parker's love life gets mixed up in this Spider-Man adventure. Because you don't get to that until kind of far in the book. We're already a few pages in, 8 pages in or so, and we've had this big opening exciting start where Spider-Man loses a fight against the Vulture. J. Jonah Jameson's really happy. Now we have the reporters doing their work. And what we end up with is sort of a Betty and Veronica move here. So we have a Marvel comic with Betty and Veronica, except the blonde one is more like Veronica, and the black-haired one is more like Betty. So it's a little mixed up that way, but it works. This, as you can tell from just the way she's dressed already, is sort of the crazier, loudmouth, man-hungry kind of reporterette who's trying to finish off her story so she can go on her hot date. Then we cut to this other reporter here, which is Miss K, he calls her. This is Jill, I guess, probably. Miss K over here. Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot on her opening position there on the big half-page panel reveal, which if we've learned anything over the years in comics, you want a big, bold visual when you're introducing a new character, and that works really well there. Jimmy Olsen here, who's not Jimmy Olsen, he's just the boy who runs the coffees for J. Jonah Jameson. He's going across the street to get them, and he doesn't realize it, but he's passing by Spider-Man. This will be a recurring gag. As the story goes on, you'll see it more and more. But it's Valentine's Day. There's people going around getting their flowers, getting their candy, and this poor guy is stuck trying to get to the coffee joint, which has 2 more new characters because Cooke can't help but add more characters. If you look at the cover, they're all on there. All the characters in this story, the main characters at least, there's 7 or 8 of them, depending on if you count Peter Parker and Spider-Man as 2 characters or 1. They all get blended into this one, I didn't count the pages, we'll assume 22-page story. Might be a page or 2 more, I'm not sure. But so we have this jerk coffee guy. We have the sweetheart. I don't want to call her an alt girl, that'd be wrong, but the girl with the blue hair and the bit of the attitude. She sasses the other guy. She's cool. She's got the kitty cat thing in her hair, the freckles, the tattoo, the whole 9 yards. She's a lot of fun. She seems to like Spencer. He's a jerk. He spikes J. Jonah Jameson's drink with Laxo, which you can imagine what that is. Everyone knows what a laxative is these days. Here's that for the Ultimates. Yep, this goes back. Here comes Krypto to wake up, a random white dog to wake up Spider-Man, but he doesn't come up. He doesn't wake up at all. That's what we call, giving you hope and then tearing it away. He's not getting out that easily. Turns out she's going on a date with Peter Parker. Go figure. But guess what happens? We get to it a couple pages later. But Kay is also going out on a date with Peter Parker. He's double booked. He's managed, because he's so silly, let's put it that way, to double book Valentine's Day, which will only get him, of course, in trouble, not just with J. Jonah Jameson and the Vulture, but with 2 women in his life who he could have been dating, both Betty and Veronica. Then we get a full page, and it's hilarious if you read the whole dialogue, but J. Jonah Jameson is mad and just angry, and hatred is spewing from him until, of course, his wife shows up. Then he turns into a nice husband and leaves her alone with, his coffee cup, which we know is spiked. Spider-Man almost gets up again, but fails. And we see there's a little reminder on his arm for 8 o'clock tonight with the heart. What could happen there? By the way, spoilers. If you haven't read this issue yet, I suggest you do. I'm giving you some of the plot points, but it's a lot better off if you read the whole thing, trust me. The girls talk. Turns out they didn't realize they have two different visions of their lives with Peter Parker. Kay has this bucolic suburban life pictured. Jilly over here has the more adventurous, retro comic book Romita sort of 60s, 70s adventure version of a life together. But it doesn't matter because he stood them both up. J. Jonah Jameson gets to avoid going to the opera, for which he's somewhat thankful because of the spiked coffee. Hold that thought, he'll get his revenge. The coffee boy ends up on a date with Coffee Girl, and J. Jonah Jameson forces the coffee guy to drink up from his coffee cup. Because he knows who did it, because he's a reporter. J. Jonah Jameson, as gruff and mean a guy as he is, does indeed work for a newspaper and can suss out a story and knows the people around him and can figure these things out. So a good time is had by all. And then, of course, Spider-Man gets woken up by a homeless guy, goes home and finds the girls. It's a little awkward. It's classic Peter Parker not being able to catch a break. He looks like death warmed over, but that's not going to get him out of any sort of trouble at all. Instead, he just passes out, and they fall in love with him all over again because he's such a sweetheart. And the Vulture, the stolen diamond he gets to give to his sweetheart. A happy Valentine's Day is had by all in the Marvel Universe, and Darwyn Cooke tells the story beautifully. That's the speed version of the story. I recommend, if you can find this issue, it might be in a collected edition somewhere, I'm not sure. Pick it up. It's great storytelling. I kind of loaded that up in the front of the issue, but there's a lot of great examples of how to tell a story in a comic book as you go across all those pages. Darwyn Cooke was a master artist, and comics misses him and is poor for his loss. But that's Spider-Man's Tangled Web number 11. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. If you like this video, push the thumbs up button. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to this channel because I can't stop myself.